All right, live here on episode 8 for 7-day worship. Thank you, anybody who's going to watch this and anybody who watches this in the future for joining us in this conversation today. My name is Klocek, and I am the host of this wonderful little experiment of a podcast. I've been a worship pastor for almost 20 years working in the church, and done a lot of other stuff, including entrepreneurial stuff. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today. I am here today with Rory Cray. Rory, you want to say hey and introduce yourself a little bit? Who are you and what do you do?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Rory Cray. My day job is the VP of Education at Practicing Musician, and I focus on many different things, wear many hats at the company. I focus on a lot of various things from AI to onboarding teachers for the platform to really, whatever is needed. And yeah, I don't know if you want me to go into the longer backstory or.
We'll get into that, but just so
Okay.
everybody knows who might be looking at this, the reason Rory's being a little cryptic and vague is because there's a lot of proprietary stuff that has to be kind of guarded with things that he's in the works of creating. And I'm sure everybody kind of gets into that understanding with the AI boom that's happening right now. But the cool thing that I've discovered with Rory working with him is just the passion that he's put forward into helping educators be able to own what they create and to have the ease of ability to navigate the process of going from beginning to complete curriculum development. Would you say that that's fair, Rory?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, from source material to a fully built instructional design, very quickly, high quality and whatnot. And speaking of cryptic, my camera's just not working right now. That's why you can't really see me.
Yeah, that's not part of the the cryptic nature of you. Yeah. What happened with that again? You say it was your cat?
Yeah, me and my cat were playing, and my cat Fritz knocked my laptop off the counter, hit the corner, so it's a bit finicky, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And when it does, I won't touch my computer at all, and then it'll just go away. And be like, oh, okay, it's just my camera's on the Fritz.
I was gonna say I love that his name is Fritz.
Yeah.
Really perfect. All right, well let's get into your story real quick. We're gonna talk a little bit about you. Just so you guys know, again, Rory jumped in like last minute here. This is kind of a filler episode where I'm talking about a little bit about what I do and the project, the local worship project. We'll get into explaining that out. Rory will hopefully just grill me on that so you guys can get a decent picture of what that is and why we're doing it, as well as other things that God has had me and my family do over the years. And so we're going to go a little bit light on the interview today and go a little bit more into exploratory conversational mode, kind of quicker on here. But Rory, can you just give a little bit of background of where did you start in your journey with what you're doing right now? Like maybe start with your interest when you were youth and then getting into college and what led you to do and what you're doing now.
Yeah, sure thing. So I started music at around 5th grade. You have the sort of petting zoo of various instruments, and I was interested in a few, but then I got into trumpet. My dad was a trumpet player a bit when he was younger, and he did a bit of piano and singing, but, the petting zoo was for playing band for the, school class and whatever. So I got into that, and after playing trumpet a little bit, then I got into some various players. Louis Armstrong was an artist I really listened to a lot. Chris Bodie and others, and obviously, Miles Davis, but Satchmo, he really was just so joyous in his playing, his singing, and everything. So I just really gravitated to him. And I played trumpet for about 4 years. I was always really good and whatnot, but my instructor, Mr. Winterfeld, he's like, Rory, you're playing all the right notes, you're doing everything right, but you're just way too quiet. You just gotta play louder. It sounds loud to you, but you know, it needs to be louder for everyone else. Because I got some solos and whatnot, but it's sort of funny because I had a solo and go up to my parents like, did you hear me play the solo? They're like, you played a solo? Because I tried to surprise them. But eventually I got braces, and that did not do too well to my embouchure and everything. It sort of eats up your inner lip, and you have to put wax on it. And so I had to relearn a lot of things and whatnot. But at the same time, I was playing a lot of Guitar Hero. If you remember that and like Rock Band, those were a lot of fun. But then my brother was playing guitar as well, so I really got into that. I still remember some notes on the trumpet, but guitar just sort of set me into a whole new realm of music. And I got into a band soon after. I got my first guitar March 15th, 2008. So it's almost been like 18 years now, which is crazy to think.
Wow.
But my good friend Andrew Aguilar, he's like, hey, I heard you're learning guitar. You're gonna be in my band. You know how some extroverts they like voluntold something. It's like, you're gonna do this, and I'm like, okay, well I just started learning. He's like, oh, don't worry, it's easy. So we played in a talent show, and then we were in a band together up until college. So from about 8th grade to college, and it was basically like a alternative rock group. We had many different names and many different rhythm guitarists and drummers, but it was always just the core of me and Andrew. And it had some like Christian undertones and whatnot, sort of like subtle messaging and everything that's very accessible to everyone, but also has that underlying core to it. And I got much more serious into music, and my parents eventually supported me when I got near college. They wanted to get me into business, but I had no interest whatsoever. And they said, okay, well, you have a lot of interest in music, you're very passionate, very smart, so you'll be able to find how to make a living with that, so we'll support you. And that was very encouraging. And getting into Western Washington University, I was playing classical guitar and had a really great teacher there, David Feingold. And so eventually I got my bachelor's in classical guitar performance, and really enjoyed that, and wanted to do a bit more, but ended up realizing that, oh man, I don't want to practice 5 to 8 hours a day to possibly not make it in the industry of, the lucrative business of classical guitarists. It's very, very small and hard to be, hard to get in to the big scene if you didn't start at, 3.5 years old. So I'm like, okay, well, I love music, I love theory, I love history. So I eventually got into teaching guitar and ukulele at Guitar Center, and then learned a bit about teaching in the public setting. So I did a bit of post-bac, and then a degree started at Western Washington University called Masters in Music History and Literature. So I jumped on that, and I did so because it really focuses on music in a broad way. So, uh, in a broad fashion, not Broadway. um,
I was going to
but
ask.
um, but yeah, you teach, you learn theory, you learn the holistic part of music. So if you're performing, teaching, and everything, you incorporate almost every aspect of music itself. So then it's very good because you become excellent at communicating.
Mhm.
And communication is very good in any field of study. And it requires you to be creative and imaginative and engaging. So I wrote about the Beatles and wrote a very long thesis about them, uh, focusing on rhythmic structure. So basically, going right to the rhythm of the music and mapping that out in a very systematic way, since virtually every Beatles song, most, is strophic, meaning that there are verses, choruses, bridge, and everything. And so when you hear, let's say, a second verse, you know the rhythm is going to be the same, and even the melody for the most part. And so that rhythm stays the same, verse one, verse two, verse three, and then you contrast that with the chorus. So, how is that different? How is it similar? How do they perform contrast in music? Because we focus so heavily on harmony, but we don't really focus too much on rhythm. And it's just so innate and natural to us. So it's like, oh, rhythm, that's just rhythm. Yeah, we want to focus on melodies and harmony. It's like, how about, let's focus on this as well. So I created my own system of analysis and found some trends in their music over three main periods. So the early rock and roll, covering a lot of Chuck Berry songs and things like that, getting more into their introspective period, where then you get, like Sergeant Pepper and Magical Mystery Tour, and then their turn away from that when you have like the White Album. And it's a more mature period, but also going back in time a bit as well. So three main periods. And I found some really cool trends that no one had really talked about before, which is hard to do in Beatles literature, because everyone's written about the Beatles in almost every way. But then getting near the end, I was like, okay, I want to get my doctorate. I really want to focus on musicology. I love this stuff. And I looked at various schools and learned that Florida State was my dream school. It's like, okay, they really focus on the graduate students being instructors of record. So they build the syllabus, they teach the classes, they grade the work, they do everything a professor does, and they just have some oversight from the various professors. And it's very friendly. People actually talk with each other within the program. And they had a focus on ethnomusicology as well. So basically non-Western music and popular music, everything that doesn't really encapsulate the Western art music tradition. So they covered the gamut. And they have you focus on performance as well, because you're a performer scholar rather than many Ivy League schools where they just focus on writing books and they don't do much else. You're just, sitting in your ivory tower, and you do deep research, and you don't talk to many people. So it attracts certain personalities, and I just focus more on the communal aspect of music, um, in a more holistic way. Uh, Not saying that the
So
scholars in the Ivy League schools don't have community, it's just a community I didn't wanna get into.
yeah,
Uh, and
what
so I
was the goal with this? So like you're
Mhm,
getting passionate about music, you're starting to get fired up about nuances with things as you're writing your papers and everything and doing projects,
mhm.
getting your doctorate. Um, did you see an end goal, or was it just like, no, I'm having a blast and I want to go in deeper?
Yeah, the end goal was, for a long time, to become a tenure track professor.
Hmm.
And, I loved teaching because I did that for years, one-on-one with guitar and ukulele, and then I learned that teaching in the classroom was really fun. But then, so getting my doctorate, nearing the end, you start to talk with, uh, professors, new and old, to get their experiences, and I was talking especially with adjunct professors, and oh my gosh, that was very eye-opening because they I heard stories of them moving around the United States. They would teach for 1 year at this university, 1-year contract, and then it's done, and then they have to move somewhere else, or they just find a better gig, and I did not want to move around to then get the, end goal of tenure track, which doesn't guarantee you tenure. It just gives you about 6 years before you then, become tenured, or before the review comes. And I was thinking, I really wanna live, near my family. And a big thing about me is I love my family, and I love being near them. And so then talking with Jake, Douglas, the CEO of Practicing Musician, me and him were he was the last drummer of, the band I was in with Andrew. And, Andrew, after, well, college, and then after, and right now, he's now a worship pastor and insanely good songwriter. Oh my gosh. And so he's now in South Carolina doing his thing with his 2 kids and his wife, and it's just the bee's knees. I just love it so much. But anyway, yeah, uh, I stayed in touch with Jake, after the band broke up in 2013, I believe, and me and Jake just, yeah, we connected again in 2015, uh, doing some, he needed some notation work, so I did some, like, engraving and whatnot, notation editing, and then we started chatting for whatever reason, again, starting in September of 19 when I started my doctorate. So we're doing compositions together and just talking about stuff, and eventually, when I saw the light of adjuncting and, uh, tenure track being a very hard route, I was like, "Hey, Jake, can I could you find a place for me at Practicing Musician?" And he's like, "I thought you'd never ask." Yes,
Hmm.
absolutely. Um, 'Cause he didn't mention it before, because he's like, "Oh, your dream was to be a tenure track professor."
Hmm.
And I was thinking, "Okay, well, if I work for PM, then I can work remotely, be near my family, and then have a massive impact." Because this is worldwide, 46 countries, and, the work that we do then impacts the future, musicians, scholars, and people who just love community and all the things. So it's like, okay, I can make a massive impact as well. So, working at practicing musician, I started as an advisor, focusing on helping the teachers go through onboarding to then teach as private instructors. And then that leads into how you and I met, Casey,
Hmm.
with worshiping musician, which I don't know if you've talked about that on your live streams yet.
No. There's a lot of things that we've talked about. That one is a nugget for down the road. So
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
talk about that one. Yeah, we'll get into that one at some point here, though. But yeah.
Sure, sure. Um, so yeah, I worked on that a bit and just got more and more interested in how I could help PM. But one of the big ones was uh, so in April of 2022, I saw this video, and it was by Dr. Alan D. Thompson talking about Dolly or Dolly 2, one of those, basically the text to image model created by OpenAI. And I was absolutely blown away because I'd not ever seen a model that could take text and then create art. And so this is the start of my understanding of generative AI, you know, the thing that's taking over the world right now in various ways. And so then watching his videos and whatnot, then I saw that for text. So you say, write me an essay about blank. And then it's like, sure thing. And then here's the essay. And I learned that it was stochastic, or basically it creates something original every single time. So being in academia, it's like, oh my gosh, students can use this to cheat because it passes the
Yep.
plagiarism detectors. So I tried to raise the red flags in at the school, but they're like, oh, it's not really widespread, and you have to pay for it, and this and that. And I was, you know, uh, working on my own stuff, so I wasn't gonna take too much time on it. Plus, it wasn't like a big thing. Um, but then November 30th, 2022 came around, and I used ChatGPT for the first time, and that's when it was launched because I was following the forums and whatnot, like on Reddit, and I was like, oh my gosh, now it's free for everyone. So
Hmm.
then, and still trying to raise the red flags, it didn't really go anywhere, but it's like, okay, well, I can just use this in other ways, not using it for like school, but just like just testing it out. Like it's like this alien intelligence that you're like, asking it questions, then just spits it out immediately. It just blew me away.
Why can't
So
anybody listen to those red flags? I mean, it's such an obvious. I guess hindsight's 2020, but like,
mhm.
how can people in the academic circle not get that? I mean, they should be at a different level,
Mhm.
right?
Oh yeah, right. Um, but it's a lot when it comes to things like that. It's if it's not an immediate concern, then they're not going to really do anything because that requires a lot of effort, and everyone is overworked and underpaid. And it wasn't like this immediate concern yet. Um, and I was trying to be a bit preemptive, but um, it's not like it fell on like deaf ears or anything. They were like, "Oh my gosh, wow, yeah, that's incredible." And then it's like, "Okay, let's move on." So when it really did become a big thing, then I did what I could because I was already thinking about it for months and months and months, or to a certain point, years, where it's like, no, here's how to use it correctly. Here's how to, mainly as teachers, okay, your students are going to use it. Now here's how to uh, I guess, have students do written work that, I guess, circumvents their use of AI. So, for
Mhm.
example, Google Docs, they have histories. So you go to the little circle arrow thing and you can see the history of that document. So if you see a student's document and you see nothing and then 1,500 words, that's, red flag. Like, yep, you copied and pasted something.
Mhm.
Whereas if you see written work and then it's like, oh, here's one paragraph that they wrote and then they got rid of stuff and then added and then, oh, here's some notes and blah, blah, blah. And so you see that writing process in that history, then you can say, okay, it's very likely that they've been thinking about it more than 5 minutes.
Yeah. Well, I
So
mean, so there's a lot of what I seem to understand about where it's landed currently. We're going to do a whole AI episode, by the way. I
nice.
episode 10 is that, so I should have you back on because we'll geek out about
Yeah.
that. But yeah, especially when it comes to the church using AI, it's such a
Mm.
bipolar um, topic of discussion at this point.
Oh
But
yes.
the in the teaching world, in the academic world, it seems like it just has to be accepted now because now it's a tool like a calculator almost, and you
Hmm.
train kids how to interact with this tool. Um, but you also have to have the teachers developing a new way of grading because of it.
Hmm.
It
Yeah.
seems there's some of that that's coming into place, but at the same time, I mean, we're kind of breaking our brains doing that, aren't we? A little bit.
Yeah. So I won't get too much into this because I think about it all the time and I can talk about it for hours.
Mhm.
But
And we will.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, your point about it being a tool is very important. So especially when it comes to skill building in the classroom setting, we can use a calculator, but it's like, okay, what's the order of operations? How do you know, you have to know the basics of mathematics before you then can know how to use it. But the thing with artificial intelligence is that you either amplify your skills. So let's say, I've already done the hard work of being a good writer, a good scholar, and. So when I use artificial intelligence, then it amplifies my skills because I know what it does wrong and I know the weaknesses and the strengths of, it doing certain tasks. Whereas if I'm a young high schooler and I use AI, I don't know what's good and I don't know what's bad. So I'm building my skills. And so I can either then, as a student, one, be lazy and have it do the work where I'm not thinking and I just trust it blindly. Or two, I can use it to help me learn and build skills. So it's like, okay, I don't understand this paragraph. What is it doing? Oh, it has a thesis statement and it outlines the what the essay is going to cover. Okay, and this, what's this grammatical thing? Or like I wrote this thing, why is the grammar bad? Or how could it be better? So when students are using AI, they can use it to either amplify their learning or become lazy. Just like, any tool, a knife can, cut bread or it can used in a more violent way. Tools are dual use. And that's what AI is, but in an infinite, uh, you know, use case scenario. You can use it for, you know, medicine, uh, education, to like the Pentagon using it for war, or you can use it for, education, teaching kids how to learn in a very personalized way. There's so many possibilities, but yeah, your use of the word tool is very important, and especially for kids when they're using it, and should learn how to use it, because AI is not a person, though they're mirror a person.
Yeah, something
They act
we're going
like
to need
that.
to be very aware of in the future. Hey, Jana, how are you doing? Oh, did I have you muted? Sometimes it mutes for you. I'm going to unmute you and you mute yourself if you need it.
Mhm.
Let's see. Oh, no, guests muted themselves. Okay. Well, whenever you want to, Jana, you can pop on in the conversation, or just chat in here and let me know if you're having any issues. I'll give you one of those real quick. Yeah, we're just talking about AI right now in the workplace and education, specifically. Um, but yeah, we're going to jump into a couple other things here at some point. But Rory, what I'm going to have you do is kind of land the plane a little bit on your story. Just give
Yeah.
us a snippet on. We ask this question all the time here at the 7 Day Worship. Uh, what is a way? I mean, you're talking about AI, you're talking about education, you're talking about this whole curricula stuff that you're developing that we're not going to go into because it is still in the works. But how do you keep God in the focus and elevate it every single day throughout the process of all of that stuff? Like, how are you making sure that He is worshipped every day by Rory Cray?
Are you asking that in a broad way, or like through work, or just everything in
Yeah,
general?
I would say let's let's say that you're well, let's give a couple specifics if you could of how you practically do it, not necessarily just
Yeah.
broad. I read my Bible and I pray. It's like, no, no, no. What's a practical, like, say you're developing your AI tool. Like, how are you keeping him in the focus while you're actually working?
I would say one thing that really resonates with me is to focus on the good, and the community of people. Um, like one thing I really appreciate is, how Jesus uses the word church. We think of church nowadays as, oh, you go to the church in a building, and then you worship, and then you leave, and then you're not in the church anymore. And uh, whereas, the word he uses in the Greek is ekklesias, I think, something like that. So it's a communion of people focused on, the Lord and everything. I'm very, it's much more complex than that, but I'm just simplifying it. So you can have church, anywhere you are, with a group of people worshiping, the Lord. So I really, the community focus, it really, that's what resonates with me. And that's why, in something like AI, I'm optimistic. I know that there's going to be a lot of disruption that's going to happen, and it's going to be massive. But also, there's things like curing diseases. There's focusing on bringing people together. And my core thing with, especially my development and implementation of AI, is how can we keep it human focused? So bringing people together, having this tool be used for the good of everyone, and community just always, comes back as a thesis for me. But yeah, that's as far as like work goes. And for, me personally, it's what is that? Thessalonians, praise always, or something like that. Give thanks always. I
Mhm.
I give thanks every chance I get, and it's like these little things that you notice. It's you can just go about your day, but when you just stop and you notice, I guess it's hard to explain, but like if it's like these little things that happen, and they happen all the time, and some are more obvious than others, and some are huge. But giving thanks, as much as I can, and so he always is on my mind in that way. It's like something good happens, something bad happens, whatever it is. It's like, okay, there's something behind this, something to learn. And so that, at least on a personal level, that's how I worship him every day and keep him on my mind.
That's great. Yeah, there's something really cool about giving thanks. And I think it's First Thessalonians 5 is where you're
Mm.
talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's something like give thanks to the Lord in all circumstances,
Yes.
His will for you. And there's something really cool about that because when you give thanks or you're grateful, there's a whole thing about gratitude and how you physically cannot be anxious when you're grateful.
Yeah.
Giving thanks actually purges the idea of anxiety and fear and worry. And so when you hear him saying, "This is His will for you," give thanks to the Lord. Some people have read that and been like, "Oh, He just wants me to like bow all the time and tell Him He's awesome." Like, well, it's also good for your brain and your soul. And so, how
Mhm.
about obeying God of being something like telling your kid not to run in the middle of the road before he looks both ways. And if your dad tells you not to do that, what you've done, if the neighbor's over, if you've obeyed, you have honored your father in front of
Mhm.
other people. So you've loved him, and you've told everybody, "Hey, my dad's important to me. I value him because he told me not to do that, and I obeyed." And the
Yeah.
friends and they say, "Hey, man, that's a good kid. Good job. Like, way to teach him."
Mhm.
So he's honored in that moment, lifted up. But you also live a little longer, right? So there's
Yeah.
like this thing where it's not just for his glory, but it's also for your good. And it just seems to always be that case when it comes to it. And yeah, giving thanks is absolutely one of those things too. I'm going to try to bring Jana in again. Let's see if she's able to hop on. Jana, is your mic working?
Yes, it is. Hey,
Oh, there we
everyone.
go.
Beautiful. All right. How are you
Yeah.
doing?
I am doing well. I have a little infant in my arms, but we worship at all times, through all things, even with a baby in your arms.
Especially with a baby in your arms. That's awesome. Yeah. Well, if baby talks through this, don't worry about it. Jane, I'm
Okay.
going to tell Rory and everybody else who
Yeah.
jumps in. This is just a virtual life group. We're just hanging out, talking. Yeah, it's being streamed, but that's more for me to do conversations than it is to try to promote this or anything. And the idea is that over time, we're going to develop a community of people who are just talking about sharing stories of how they worship the Lord every day,
I love
and
that.
given or talking about topics that we would love to talk about with other life groups, and sometimes we don't because we have Bible studies we go through instead of talking about tough topics.
Yeah,
And
I hear that.
yeah, so it's going to be really fun. Jana, you want to give a quick little who are you, what do you do, and then we're going to jump into some of the project kind of conversation. I'll let you guys just grill me on it.
Sure. Well, my name is Jana. I am a worship leader, worshiper, music educator, wife, mom, um, pursuing my master's in school counseling, so soon to be school counselor. But in all things, just a person who loves Jesus, who loves people. And I serve often with my husband, who's also a worship director at a church here in Nashville.
Yeah, we got to get him on at some point as well. Just have
Yeah,
a fun conversation.
Mhm.
sure.
Oh, and can I tell a quick fun story?
Sure.
No.
um, so one thing I was mentioning earlier is giving thanks and noticing the small things.
Yeah.
And so I remember you and I, Jana, met virtually on Facebook
Hmm.
back in like 24 or early 25.
Yeah, I think so.
And I saw one of your posts. You were uh, it was a post about your husband's birthday or something.
Oh,
And, so I'm like, oh, that's a nice post. And it was like a month or two later. So I live here in Sandpoint, Idaho, very small town, and we have this music conservatory. And I was in this concert, and it was the focus or the theme was joy. And I was singing Ode to Joy,
uh-huh.
Beethoven and everything. And I was in rehearsal, and I saw the program, and I'm like, oh, I think I recognize that name. And it was your husband,
Oh,
a
yeah.
piece that he wrote, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that is so cool. Like, what are the chances that they choose this song?
Oh, yeah. You're
This
talking about, yes, we wrote a song called I've Got Joy.
Yes, that's the
Um,
one.
yes. And that's funny because that was one of those, kind of like random worship moments where, because I heard you guys talking about this idea of being grateful. And we were down in my husband's studio. Our little girl had just came down. And I think he just had like this revelation of like, God, you've blessed me. You've blessed my family. Like, we're so grateful. And out of that came that melody. I've got joy down in my soul. I've got joy down in my soul. I've got joy. Oh, I've got joy, I've got joy. I've got joy in my soul. And he just like random quick melody, but like that turned into a whole song that we ended up transcribing for a choir and like on JW Pepper, and I want to say it's like published through Endeavor, but like it got like the editor's choice award or like this first
Wow.
time thing that like new songwriters, we've never written a choral song before, but like our one and only, or our first, shall I say, not one and only, but our first choral song got like a lot of recognition and people have been singing it. And we're just like, wow. And that literally came out of a moment of gratitude and thanksgiving and worship, just because, you know, in the middle of life, one
Mhm.
evening. So small world. And it's Rory. How do you say it?
Yeah, Rory Cray.
Okay. I'm gonna see if he recognizes your name. But that's really cool and a small world for sure.
We
Yeah.
were going to have a kid and name it Rory. Not after I met you, Rory, before. Not to knock that, but the problem with it was I couldn't ever say it, and so it was hilarious when I met you.
Yeah.
Say his name because I'm like, Rory, like I just like can't get the ROR sound to work together.
Oh,
Name, but I was like, I can't sound like an idiot every time I say our kid's name, and so I feel like a dummy every time I talk to you, Rory. But like,
Mhm.
I just have to like, get pat like Rory, I kind of like growl it out like a pirate,
Ah,
I get through it a little bit. Yeah. So sorry if I ever do that, but yeah,
Oh, you're good.
make me think about those things. Can you guys? I'm going to start a little bit of a conversation here uh, when it comes to the idea of music in the church. We were talking about this last week a lot about the idea of licensing music. Should you get paid for it? Should you not get paid for it? All that kind of stuff. But just to get us into the wheels of the local worship and to buy me a few minutes while I check my baby downstairs, which is not related. Could you guys maybe just get the wheels churning on the idea of what current Christian musicians have to deal with when it comes to publishing, when it comes to licensing, and what that current game, I guess, looks like that Christians are playing in. With you, Jana, I know you guys know a little bit about that. Rory, you know a little bit about that. But I don't think people watching this sometimes understand, especially pastors, understand what licensing is, and how that breakdown to what they're allowed to do, what the artists are not allowed to do with contracts, and all of that. Does that sound like something you guys can riff on for a few minutes here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Rory, I'm going to let you lead it, and then you guys just, again, life group, just chat, and I'm going to be right back on camera.
Sure.
Yeah.
See you soon. Yeah. So, yeah, that can be a sort of, well, one, it can be difficult to just navigate. It's like what CCLI, I believe, is
Yeah.
the organization that you go through when it comes to uh, licensing and everything like that. And so navigating that can be, just something that you got to learn as like a church and musicians and everything. And then it's like, okay, it can be a bit sticky or feel a bit funny
Yeah.
when you like write music meant for worship, and then you get a lot of money from it, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, no. um, it could be like, or some atheists are very good at writing worship tunes, and then they monetize that, and
Yeah.
so it's like, that feels a bit funny and weird.
Yeah.
um, and then you may feel a bit odd for writing something that, well, one is really great because you're bringing people closer to God through music, but also then you're profiting from it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, let me get some of your thoughts on that.
Well, it's always interesting because I think even with my background of like being a musician, um, like sometimes this is our livelihood, like and I know that like biblically, um, like the Levites in the Bible, like they were always like priests. They were taken care of, whether it was like they were assigned allotments of land, whether they were receiving a portion of like your first fruits or tithes, or like I feel like there is a like a biblical foundation for compensating people who are serving using their gifts.
Mhm.
um and so I come from the school of thought of like, like I think I think that's good. I think that's right. I mean, I think in any other setting, if a group of songwriters were getting together, and they weren't in the church, there would be this idea of like, conversation of how, if this song takes off, how are we like splitting royalties? I mean, I just feel like that is a natural conversation that happens in like music business. Um, and I don't necessarily think that it's wrong for it to happen in the church. But I think with like all conversations, I just think like how you have that conversation is important. In my mind, I'm thinking like everything, um, you know, above board and upfront and communicative, and not like secret or manipulative, or you know, um, I'm getting 90% of the song and everybody else is getting 2% of the song,
Mhm.
but like, just like a fair division. And I feel like in our world, and every church does, will do this differently, but I feel like when we're writing as a church, as a congregation, um, or like a choir or an ensemble, we are putting the church's name on that. And so like any funds or money that comes in is coming to be a blessing to the church. It's not specifically coming to individuals. If there is some type of feature where, an individual was like, um, like wrote most of the work, or like individuals wrote the song, but like the choir sings it, um then we usually just do some type of like fair. If it's three people, we divide the song into like everyone gets like 33%. We always just do like equal divisions, um and that way, like when we're writing and when we're kind of in like the co-writing process, we're all just committing to giving our best, and like investing um all we have in it, instead of like, oh, well, I'm only getting 20%, so I'm making sure I only give 20%. Um, and so I think having the conversation, I think, um, moving forward with licensing and publishing, I, I see that all as an opportunity to be a blessing to the ministry. And as we're blessing the people who hear it, um again, like just like a church service, or like a sermon, you hear a message, and usually there's an opportunity to give an offering to a guest speaker. At least there is at my church. um but usually those are just our opportunities to almost like say thank you for being a blessing. Thank you, your song really ministered to me. Your song is being a blessing to the kingdom. I want to help it continue moving forward. It feels like a natural part of um the way that the kingdom works, if you will.
That's super. Yeah, I'm back. Thank you for having that conversation. Jana, that might have been one of the better responses I've heard in general when it comes to churches and the way that they should look at
Mm.
the way they're paying for licensing. And yeah, like the offerings come in. What do you do with offerings? If I'm getting what you're saying correctly with this, correct me if I'm wrong. It's this concept of the offerings come in to help people at the church facilitate what they're going to do. Part of that's
Yeah.
music, so they're
Yes.
facilitating that by paying the licensing fees, and they're doing other things with it outside of the church as well. So, big deal of paying the licensing fee.
Yeah.
Um, funds are coming in for, and I couldn't agree with you more on that. The story that I always go back to, because I asked myself this question when I felt God putting it on me to talk about the worship music industry,
Hmm.
thinking through why am I so, as a worship pastor for 18 years, why am I so frustrated with it and
Mm.
disagree with it? Why? Is it money? And I honestly thought it was money for a while. And then I read First Chronicles 21 in David's census, and I saw David engage with Araunah the Jebusite when he has to give a sacrifice and he needs the tools to worship the Lord.
Mm.
Is go up there and don't bring anything. Like, don't bring anything. God knows what's about to happen. And he goes to Araunah before David comes up there to give this sacrifice to stop the plague that's killing thousands of people because of a bad decision that he made. So he's doing this thing where he's got to make a sacrifice in order for it to stop, but he don't bring anything. So he goes up there, and Araunah the Jebusite says, "Hey, knew you were coming, yada yada. Here's the stuff that you need for the sacrifice. I got this threshing floor. I've got the oxen. I've got the kindling. I got everything, the oil, all the stuff's right here. Take it, have it freely. And David's response is really important because he says, no. And then when Araunah pushes back, no, take it. People are dying, man. Like, take this stuff. God told me to give it to you. He's saying, no, it has to cost me something. And so he pays him for all of it, including the threshing floor. He buys all of it and pays money for it. And then he makes the sacrifice, and God accepts it. So, and the plague stops. So what that tells us right there is that money's not a problem when it comes to these things. You brought up the Levitical type of stuff. Even Paul would fall into that, right? Like where people are paying for what he's doing here and there. Not always, but here and there.
Yeah.
Letters being written, funding his journey, and where he's going and all that. But then when they don't, he's making tents and making his own way. And so you do see it with supporting people financially. And then you see in Acts 4, everybody giving everything they had to support people as well. Now, I always go from there in 1 Chronicles 21, because I said, well, why do I still have an issue? I go to John 2, and I see the exact same location where Solomon on that threshing floor builds the temple. And I see Jesus there now watching vendors do exactly what Araunah was doing. And what they're doing is they're selling the animals for people to sacrifice. So they're selling things in the church. And I don't think there was a problem with that at all. I think what happened when you see Jesus famously flipping the tables, and people use this passage way out of context half the time, but when he's flipping the tables, you see something really interesting. It's after he was watching them count off to the side. And something happened in that passage that's really important culturally to understand. And in America, we can kind of get this. It's supply and demand. So it was getting late at night. It was getting to the end of the day. They were running out of supply, and the demand was still great. So what do? They started upcharging everybody. And so while they're upcharging everybody for all the rest of their goods, they're over there counting the coins, and the issue was in the heart, not necessarily in the action. So you had people chasing money instead of chasing loving God. The love of money instead of the love of God. You can't worship both things. And so there was this opposite heart posture with Araunah and David, where both of them were like, no, I have to give. It's worth it. It has to cost me something. Araunah's like, you can have it all. And David's like, no, it has to cost me something. Where on the other side, you see people, instead of saying, no, take it, you see them saying, let's charge them more. Because we're in a good spot here at the end of the day, and supply and demand's a thing. They have to worship, therefore let's charge them more. And so I think what you see there is not an issue of money, but you see an issue of heart posture that's going on. And so then I ask myself, okay, well, that's starting to lock in a piece for me, understanding why I'm so frustrated. Who owns the Christian labels? And what are their motives? And if you look at the bigger ones that you have out there right now, like Capitol Records would be a good example of that, who is now Universal, is owning the same people like Taylor Swift and Chris Tomlin. And they're not Christians, and they don't have any Christian motives. And they're the ones who will drive the marketing or the artist selection to make money happen with ROI. So they're not going to get in and change your songs, but they will change the artists if they're not making enough money. And they will change what you hear as the listener if it's not fitting the algorithm. And so once you start getting into that rabbit hole, I start wondering, okay, it doesn't seem like it's a Christian artist problem. It doesn't seem like it's a money problem. It seems like it's a systemic problem with the way that we've fallen into this trap of secular music, and we're just modeling the same thing. And so that's where it kind of started for me. I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts, because maybe I'm totally off base with that, but that's where the premise begins with me.
And that reminds me of going back to, tools. It's like money is a tool, and if you can use it, it's, we need to use these things. But if you use them incorrectly, then that's going to be a bad time. Sort of like with AI It's like, okay, you can use it for good, or you can use it for many other poor reasons. So it's like, yeah, just coming back to how you use these tools and whatnot. So to bring it back to that first part of the conversation.
Yeah, I think what highlighted for me is the posture of people's hearts. Um, and I feel like th- I think this is part of um, maybe like my like hope and dream and desire in like studying music and becoming excellent in the craft. Um, like trying it's hard to find people who have good hearts or pure motives that are like also high up in the music industry. I'm not going to say they're not there, but you know, sometimes it seems like the people who are, um, like advancing and um, most successful are people who don't always have the purity of heart, and like the selfless, um like thinking of others, considering others better than themselves. Like it's hard to find people who have that heart posture. um and so, yeah, we have these labels that it they're serving, maybe gospel or Christian artists and secular Christian artists, and it's just because like they might have like the greatest reach, or they may have like the most resources. But wouldn't it be incredible, to have a label who, the top executives are people who ultimately want to glorify God? And I think I'm kind of saying all of that to say, like, I think that's why it is so important for us to invest in the kingdom or invest in each other, or to invest in like Christian artists. When you see people who are trying to do things the right way with a pure heart, and like the motive isn't, I'm out here trying to get rich, but I really want to glorify God. I think when the body of Christ comes together like that, and we can invest in the kingdom, I feel like that's where we see, that's where God really gets the glory.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I mean, I think so. I've talked with a lot of people. First of all, the whole label thing, there are some really good Christian labels out there now. So, no shade. I brought up Capitol Records, which is like, to me, you've got like the evil, and then you've got this slope down the labels and the publishers of people who are trying to do it right.
Yeah.
And Capitol's like up here. Formerly, I think that would be Sparrow, I think is who they were, which didn't start in a bad spot either. But it's something that Keith Green noticed really early on when he stopped, jumped ship, and said, "No, I'm actually gonna do the first like crowd funded worship album." you know and so
Mm.
his was he dropped out, sent letters around the country saying, hey, I'm going to give my album to everybody, right? I'm giving it away. If you guys fund it, this is how many I can give away to people and help us write the song. And he did his whole thing, and then he died super early. Rich Mullins is another good example, trying to fight the system. Sparrow
Mm.
got had him. His whole thing was, I'm going to almost like Francis Chan, it's like this poverty kind of thing that he leaned into. He actually lived on an Indian reserve. I think it was in South Dakota.
Mm.
But he lived on an Indian reserve, didn't wear shoes because they didn't have shoes where he was. And all of his money went to other stuff outside. He didn't let his right hand know what his left hand was doing with that. And then he died super early on it. And it was just kind of crazy how the people who were trying to change the system in some way, shape, or form both died. There were huge IPs for them. But I think the problem is these labels really do have to treat people as an IP. They have to treat them
Mm.
as a product that they have to market and facilitate and algorithmically get up the chain. And so now there's a precedent for who fits the more visible IP and how can we market them most effectively. And it doesn't become a conversation about, and I don't even think it should be a conversation about who's writing great music for the Lord. I think that conversation, or the conversation of those things should be peers, songwriters hanging out with each other, writing music, and being able to distribute it. And the cool thing is, I think we're at a place where you don't really need publishers and labels the way you used to. You just need to be a different way of licensing your music, and we'll get into that in a second. But Rory, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, so I'm maybe not as much in the industry.
I'm still here. I just gotta open a door. Be right back.
Oh, okay. As much as both of you, but from, I think, like the best case scenario is to have the system that focuses best on, serving the kingdom and everything, while compensating those who have the best intentions for the church. Because we've seen many people fall into the trap of greed, and that's that needs to be avoided, especially in this this genre. I guess we could say, because the many other labels, they literally capitalize on greed, in their lyrics, to their image, to everything. Whereas, worship music is focused on worship. And so I think, having that balance of the system itself, the label, and how it compensates the writers and whatnot is the best sort of fit.
That's
some
good.
of my thoughts there. But I don't know what that looks like exactly, but like how you said, Casey, with those examples, I think that those are at least very good examples of how to do it right. And try to not die young if you do it right.
Well, that's a problem, isn't it? No conspiracy.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, going back to the IP stuff, we talked about last week a little bit. This whole is a Christian artist who is now on a pedestal, because that's how it is too. They're kind of like unreachable. That's another issue that I have with the system. You can't really talk to the Chris Tomlin or the Paul Balash even, unless, like, he used to talk on Twitter. I chatted with him a couple times, but it's incredibly difficult to talk to these people because they're so far removed from you, and not even by choice. They just are, because they're like celebrity when they get up to that place. And if they're not, they have to push really hard to become that for people to hear their music. And that's another problem too, because the motives are, if I'm not popular enough, people won't even hear the music that I'm writing for the Lord. And since I'm dedicating my entire life to this, if I'm not popular enough, then my family doesn't eat either. And I have to figure out other ways for us to live. And so it becomes this kind of crazy grind where we know, like, the whole Tennessee, Nashville scene is like, you're at least spending 5 years there. Get ready for your 5-year hustle. And you're probably going to be spit out at the end of it as a Christian artist or anything else. We know that very easy trend. But I think as far as like the IP goes, we didn't talk about this last week. I was dealing with some car issue stuff with my wife, and I didn't jump in, and they were in a great other conversation when I got back. But I think when it comes to, instead of the pedestal, you also have to look at yourself as a product when you're a Christian artist these days. They're selling you as much as they're selling your song. And so you have to fight this urge of wearing a mask, putting on a facade. and you didn't necessarily want to be that, but all of a sudden you are the product. And once you're not doing well anymore and people don't care about you as much as the next product, then you go and they get the next one in. And so the grind and the competitiveness for that space is kind of brutal as well. Um, yeah, I don't know. Jana, have you ever experienced any of that with you and your husband? I mean, you guys have, again, like your song that you wrote kind of hit some cool stuff, um, just in a very organic way, I'd say. So it's not like you guys went through this grind to get into all that stuff, or I don't even really know the history there.
Yeah, no, I mean, and I don't know. I think that's why my husband more so pursues artistry than I do. I'm married to him, so I get pulled into a lot of things. um, but but I think it's that route of like just being an indie artist. I mean, um, we also have like access to people who have, like these record deals, and so I get this whole concept of like intellectual property and like even them themselves being like the product or being the image. um but I'm also like really grateful that even the people that we know who are in that world, um like their lifestyle, their reachability, like they are approachable, they are um I don't, it's interesting because like I see the moments where it's like this is my profession, this is what I do for work. um but I also see the heart of, but everything I'm doing is for the glory of God. So yes, I am going to be intentional in the way that I carry myself. I am going to be intentional in what I endorse and what I communicate, because it's not just my music that's communicating for me. It's me as the person. And if you see my face on something, I want to make sure that even that glorifies God. Um, and so like I see people who are just like very intentional about not only what they're creating but who they are, um just in their best effort to make sure that they are not like bringing shame or like defaming the name of Jesus, or bringing any type of that I often hear them saying like not being a stumbling block. And so yeah, I see this world of like it's what you create, it's you know what you're protecting, licensing, monetizing, with like your songs and lyrics and melodies and master recordings and brand, um or even like videos and devotionals and like original content, stuff like that. um but also like the individuals themselves and like the intentional lifestyle they live, um so that at all times they're bringing glory to God. So I've seen it, and as far as our personal life, I mean, I don't think we've created enough. Like I wouldn't say that, you know people might know who my husband is, but again, I think it's just because we are in a lot of circles, and but it's interesting because I don't necessarily feel like either of us are trying to do anything. But you said this earlier, Casey, like you don't necessarily have to um, go the route of labels. Now, social media and like Instagram and YouTube and like just putting yourself before people, people can find you, and when they like your stuff, they just follow you. And I just feel like it kind of has this like avalanche effect, if you will. And I feel like
Mm,
that's all really we've ever done. Like, my husband is much better with social media than I am. But he's also, it's social media has opened a lot of doors and a lot of opportunities, with publishing deals and like, you know, kid networks and, you know, just things that we wouldn't necessarily expect. But somehow they saw us on social media and they reached out. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so I don't know. I kind of going back to like what we were saying earlier about, you know, even like for Christian artists, the world of publishing and licensing and, um, you know, how all of that affects ministry and stuff like that. Um, Again, I really see when God has given us gifts and we are just trying to use our gifts to be a blessing to the kingdom. I feel like it's even His heart, you know, that like it's like this circle of blessing. We're serving, we're giving, and when people are like acknowledging or compensating or like sharing our music so that it can, you know, spread to other people. You know, our hope is just that it's expanding our reach, of being a blessing to more people, which ultimately I think is like the goal and the heart. It's in my mind, it's all like kingdom business and a kingdom cycle, if you will.
Mm-hmm. That's great. No, I thank you. And yeah, I agree with every word. It was something that you know, I started this by saying by having us go through the conversation, the Christian music industry and all that. There was a very strict point in time after going through a lot of conversations with a lot of churches and a lot of Christian artists, where I was getting really frustrated with the different types of nuances they had to play around with. For instance, a Christian artist, uh, you know, signing a label. I was like, man, what if the concept of the local worship project was you tie the song, and so you just give one away out of the 10 that you wrote or whatever,
Mm.
or out of the 100, because they're writing so many that are never going to be seen,
Yeah.
and because they don't fit the criteria of what the label wants or the publisher wants. And so what if one of those prayer songs just goes to the public and it's public domain, or Creative Commons? And they're like, oh, we can't do that. Like we're held to contract and we can't do that stuff. Otherwise we breach our contract and we can't even really talk about this, you know? So it got really hairy really fast. And I realized, oh, wow, like it's not just about their heart anymore. It's not just about what they want. I started to get really frustrated. And then I remember very distinctly hearing God tell me, hey, your job is not to crush the music industry, because they're just one good firing away from doing a great job for me. I was like,
Mm.
oh, you're right. Yeah, you can definitely turn that around. I mean, I think of Nineveh, you know, and and I think of Jonah's hatred for them and the people, and his desire for God to just destroy them. And his message was of hope to them, not of destruction entirely. It was repent, um, and they did. And when they did, he was sitting there just waiting for them to be destroyed, and God never did. So, like, the end of the story is him just being ticked off, you know, and being a stinker, which they don't have any. But I mean, like that was something that God really just instilled in me, was your job is not to destroy them or to fight them. I've called you to something very specific, which is to give this alternative approach for artists to be able to do things and to do it in a very biblical way. And hopefully there's maybe even a joining that can happen, a locking arms in the future with all this. And so I don't really bring all this up to say, like, let's kill the Christian music industry, let's destroy it. Um, Even if I want to destroy what it's become, because it cripples artists from being able to do what they set out to do, which was to just straight up glorify God in any way that they could and not to be hindered. They are hindered under their contracts, and there's no way around it. And they have to deal with it. So it's more of like, maybe they're not a stumbling block, but other people become a stumbling block for them doing what God called them to do. And now they can't do it the way that necessarily they freely wanted to in the beginning. And it's because of promoting, marketing, and all that. It's just held away. And so let me ask you this question, just honestly, and not even really thinking too hard about it. Do you guys think that there just could be a better way of doing this for, in particular, worship music? I'm not even talking about contemporary Christian music on the radio. I'm just talking about worship music in the church. Is there potentially a better way to serve the churches and serve the artists who are writing that music?
I'd say that there's always a better way, especially when, you have people like you, Casey, frustrated with, current systems and whatnot. So I think if you lead by example, saying, okay, we're going to have this new standard and see how that plays within the industry, then if enough people support it, then that becomes eventually the new norm. And I think that's the best way to really say, and it takes time. So, when you say it's like, okay, yeah, I don't want to destroy the industry, but maybe we can evolve into this new sort of practice, because the old system, just like, institutions, they are snails when it comes to change. Like the universities or whatever it is, it's like, oh, this is our status quo. It's been like this for, 100 years, 200, however long. And then when you have something new and something that is really better, then you can say, okay, this is similar enough, but different enough where we can grow in this new direction and hopefully have everyone follow us by example.
Yeah.
I realized after I asked that question, that was a super unfair question, because it's like, oh yeah, Casey, you've got the idea. After I asked that, no, that's not what I really meant by it. But thank you, Rory. Yeah, I appreciate that. Jana, I'm going to have you speak to this in just a second, but I want to save some time for you guys to pepper me with some questions about what we're creating with the local worship project, because we're piloting in September and October this year, if everything goes according to plan, with 10 local artists and we're going to go to Bainbridge Island out in Seattle to make this happen with my co-host here. If everything again goes to plan, Chris, who's not here, he's in Hawaii with his family right now. But the idea is that we just create an MVP, testing the process, seeing if this is something that can be viable. And I'd love to answer questions about that. Jana, you can respond to what I asked earlier, even though it was super unfair. But then we can just let you guys pepper me with some questions about that pilot and how we're going to do all that.
Mm-hmm. Sure. My only thought in response to the question of, you know, maybe is there a better way of like approaching, and let me make sure I'm understanding the question right, but like, is there a better way of approaching, I want, I don't success in the music industry, like, um but like, is that kind of what is that what the question was, like?
Yeah, I lost you for just 1 second there. I think what you said was, is there a better way for, well, just go ahead and say it for me one more time. So I just
Yeah.
lost
Because I think what I heard as the question was like, there we have these traditional ways of like, worship artists and their approaches, and like, the value of, maybe signing with a label that might give them, more capital, more distribution and reach, and credibility and things like that, a bigger machine for their songs. um and so I see the way that, like, a lot of people have have been able to allow their worship music to reach the world through a label. Um, but I thought I heard the question of, is there another way, or is there a better way, or like an alternative way? Is kind of
Mhm.
what I was hearing. Is that what you were asking?
Yeah, and I would even tighten it up more and say, is there a more biblical approach for how we can distribute music from the local, from communities to the world? Because right
Yeah.
now, I mean, there's a lot of problems, right? But one of them would be they're coming from the world to communities, and whether we want to get specific or not, in some case scenarios where you have a writer in your community who does a good job and all that, like 99.9% of churches are playing the top 10 charters.
Yep.
And they're playing what Hillsong, what Bethel, what Elevation, what whoever is the big name, Brandon Lake or whoever else is
Right.
out there. That's what they're singing. And that's coming from a world that doesn't know them, doesn't care about
Hmm.
their struggles in their community,
Yeah.
and it's speaking as general as possible. We hear this vertical worship thing now, which is basically it has to just praise God. That's not worship. Stories is like half the Bible, if not like way more. And
Yeah.
how we communicate worship to God so much. But Amazing Grace isn't even a vertical song in the way that it's defined now because it's too specific.
Yeah.
And so broad language coming in that's it's just a repeated cycle. And so instead of going from the world to community, is there a way more biblically to go from communities to the world, where we share those stories and we platform them in some way that's more biblically aligned than chasing money?
Yes. Yes. That's good. I think that's a great question. And yes, I do. I mean, honestly, I feel like that could be the value, and like the potential of the church. I mean, or churches, or community churches, like churches coming together. But I think I feel like if the goal is building an audience, or like being able to share and pass on to as many people in your community, I feel like a church can do that. I do think there's something really powerful and impactful about writing to the church, or writing in your community what your community is dealing with, and like being able to speak towards that, um and again sharing that with the world, as I'm sure it will be a blessing to them. But in my mind, I do feel like there is this possibility. I don't know. I mean, the local worship project may be the solution. Like, I don't know exactly what it looks like, but I do have this idea, or like this hunch, that if churches could somehow come together, you know, I um, there could be a platform, there could be an audience, there could be, if this song blessed you, share it, like we encourage members of the congregation to, like, when you hear the word on Sunday, don't just keep it to yourself, share it with someone throughout the week. And if we're kind of saying that also, like, I don't know, like with their music, with songs, I don't know, I feel like there is a way of like infiltrating like the world through the church, just being intentional about sharing, and
Hmm.
even like being a platform, um that there, like, my mind is even going down to like the practical things. Like, most churches now do have some type of platform, some type of YouTube channel, some type of like access to the world.
Hmm.
um and it just, and maybe what's missing sometimes is like the strategy of how to do it, which, I think you can get strategy from labels. But I think if there was intentional strategy of like sharing worship, like what's happening in the worship service or worship music, I think there's a way of like distributing and kind of expanding through the church. And I don't think a Christian artist or worship artist have to make it with a label. In fact, I know worship artists who have made it without a label. In case I think you're aware of like Eddie James, I
Yep.
don't think he was ever signed with a label, but he's been traveling and sharing and being a blessing to churches in the local community and across the world. Just from the things that he's done, but he has been planted at different churches across his like tenure. At one point it was the Ramp Ministry, Karen Wheaton's the Ramp Ministries. But I think he's in Florida now. I mean, I don't know. But what I remember was him being connected to a church, and out of that church, he was flowing and like doing ministry. And honestly, the church would support financially. The church would help distribute and share the music. So is there another way? I think a more biblical way. I think there is. I don't know if I know it, but I feel like I've seen glimpses of it. um
Hmm.
and I do think that there is a possibility.
What I'm hearing you say is there's with him being a case study here, that would be like churches supporting people while they go and do it. So very,
Yes.
like, and if he wasn't being paid by them, he's going to still figure it out and keep doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I traveled with him for 2 years, and whenever we would do ministry engagements outside of the United States. So he looks like he's a gospel artist who's doing a world tour, but really that world tour was basically funded like missions projects.
Mhm.
Because I remember even as a singer having to make those phone calls and saying, "Hey, I have this opportunity to travel and sing. Would you consider, like sewing into the ministry?" And like that's how we went on the road
Mhm.
and survived.
Super cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So essentially, just going out and doing the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right.
One
Thank you
thing,
for answering that. Go ahead, Rory.
one thing that sort of resonated with me is your mention of tithes. It's like,
Mhm.
oh, what if I, as an artist, write 10 worship songs and give one away to the public? What if it was just 10% of, all revenue goes back into the churches? Let's say, a church, the one here in Sandpoint, like Cedar Hills, for example, one I like to go
Mhm.
to. It's like we pay licensing for certain songs, and then 10% of that goes back into the church itself. Instead of like a 10% off, it's just like 10% goes back. I don't know. It's just something that sort of came to mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And again, I think the mission for the project was to do more of an X4 mentality of how does everybody give so that nobody has any need. It's
Yes.
generosity and of again, the heart posture alignment is no, I have to get involved in giving. I have a spiritual gift. I'm giving that. And then if I'm receiving that gift from somebody and I know that they're giving up some of their livelihood to make that happen for us at our community, man, it's worth it, to give them and to bless them either fiscally or some other way, like room and board, like whatever it is that you can do, mowing their lawn, I mean, there's do to support each other in your community. But that's what's so cool about doing it locally is you start thinking about it locally. How do we support the people who are doing the things? And it becomes very Levitical of, oh, okay, here's the priests and here's the artists and here's the other people who are blessing the church inside and out. We support them as a community. We don't just outsource it and pay a licensing fee and hope that that's enough, and then they get to fight for the scraps over that in wherever they're going to, whatever label. And again, the different labels like have that progression of really evil and very financially driven to very, very ministry focused.
Yeah.
And there's some really great labels, and I don't think the artists are a lot of the problems either. I think they're just fighting at the table that they're given, and
Yeah.
fortunate some of them aren't. And you see that burning out of that mentality as they rise to the top, and that's why you see a lot of infiltration of secular artists coming into the Christian space, for one, because they're not great songwriters. They come into this industry that they're going to make it pretty easily because they've been grinding for so long, and they're not Christians, and so they're blunting the edge of what the sword is for the word. And then so now we're not competing with just Christian artists, but we're competing with people who aren't even Christians writing music under the facade. So we're inviting wolves into the pen because it's all about money now. And there's just a lot of issues that can happen there. But I keep derailing. What questions do you guys have for me? Because we're getting a pilot launch, but just pepper me. First thing that comes, I'll just try to rapid fire answer as much as I can in the time that we have left here.
Okay, I want to know, how are you choosing the churches that are a part of the local project?
Yeah.
Worship project?
So yeah, that's a great question. At first, for these pilots, we have a very specific archetype that we're looking for because we need to prove the concept. One thing that we know we have to have is quality that competes with what's already out there. Not in the sense of like, oh, we're trying to make money off of it, because we're not, but we're trying to gain the ears of people who don't think that it's going to be viable. So quality of music is one. So we're looking for, I'll just give the very specific person that we're looking for. For both of these pilots, we're looking for 5 worship pastors who are songwriters and also produce. So needles in a haystack. Honestly, they're out there. I already know several of them.
Yeah.
And very, very talented. And so if anybody's watching this on replay or whatever, help me find those people because we need 10. I think we can find some pretty quickly. But 10 is a big number for that. And so the idea is after this, what we're going to do is called a weekend of worship. We're going to have 5 songs, 5 churches, and 5 songwriters that are part of the project for just one of the 2 pilots that are going to happen. So by the end of it, I guess I should have said this at the beginning, we're going to have 10 songs, 10 artists, and 10 churches involved in this project from different communities across the United States. And then the idea would be to start replicating what we're doing in Washington in those different areas out of those 10 artists, and start very slowly. Once every year, we'll try to do 4 different runs of what we're piloting in September in different locations, and therefore just increasing the number by 3 to 5 songs, 3 to 5 churches, 3 to 5 communities every single time that we do it. And so I can get into that process, but does that answer that question? Who are we looking for this first?
Yes. And then how is this being funded? Like, is it a grant? Do you have access to grants or churches that are getting involved? What is the process? I don't want to ask, like, are they being compensated, but like, what's the timing? Are they traveling to where you're going to be? Is everyone doing things independently? More of like the framework.
Yeah. So I'll talk about budget first, and then we'll move on from there. So for this pilot, for each of the events, it would cost roughly $15,000. Not a ton, pretty low raise that we need to do. But the idea, and we could probably get that number way down by churches in the area that we're trying to work with right now, supplying some of the equipment needed to make this happen. But the main things that we're paying for is equipment to record both video and audio, which is extremely expensive to do quality work. Raising a little bit to do some of the infrastructure build for the platform itself. Not a lot. We're just building an MVP. It doesn't have to be robust. But then also paying the people's fare to get there, their room and board while they're there, and a small, and I mean small, stipend of like $200 to $300 per worship pastor. And it's really just saying thank you, for helping us out with this. But really just paying their way to come out and hanging out with each other, us knowing that we're piloting this. That's how we would start it. In the future, we would have stipends going to the
Uh-oh.
Reconnecting.
It-
There you go. Am I there?
Okay.
I lost you for
You're here.
a few seconds.
So in the future, we're going to be having stipends for the artist, for the mixer, the master, the producers, all that stuff. And the total amount for that is typically around $3,000 per song is what we're estimating right now to make that happen. And that would, again, come to the kind of concept of 1 Chronicles 21, where it's, no, I need to pay this what it's worth. If we're looking for worship leaders who are writing songs and asking them to bring their stuff in, I mean, worship leaders who have their stuff on Spotify, they're probably never going to see $500 for their song on Spotify ever, because they're not pursuing that. So if they get a stipend for $500 from the church saying thank you just one time for this, it's more than they're probably ever going to see, and it's probably going to help them, just stay motivated to do stuff like that in the future and feel blessed and taken care of. But that would be like a thank you from the churches doing that. The other possibility is for us to have them self-fund with their church to create like either a song contribution of $3,000 or an album, and getting their community and fundraise for that, which is just 3,000 multiple songs. And so there's different ways that can come across, and I'm open to suggestions on how to do that. But that's the budget for these pilots are $15,000 per pilot, so about 30 grand total to make both of them be pulled off. And the way we're trying to raise for that, not grants, you're not going to get noticed by grants until you have an MVP and people watching. And so it's really going to be through angel donors or churches helping get that ball moving just for this light. And then once the product's proven and people are like, oh yeah, that actually is quality stuff, would love to see more of that, then I think we can move into that next world of seeking investments or donors through grants and such.
Gotcha. And then local churches. So just for anyone who's watching online, can you clarify where's local?
Where you are. Yeah. So local would be, I'm in Nashville, and Nashville is my local scene. Any churches in the Nashville area would be local to me. Or I am in, let's see, like I'm in Missouri right now. So in the middle of Missouri, there's a county that I'm a part of. What are the churches in my county? Because it's not Tennessee and Nashville where it's like they're also congregated. So what is that I'm around? Who's my community around me? And sometimes for some churches, that's probably just like, who's in the SBC church hub around me, because they're in Southern Baptist community, or who's the Korean network that I have in my local community. And we should all be able to kind of lift with each other, but it's who am I and where am I at? And the idea is, again, local worship project. It goes from that community. Who are the artists there, platforming what they're doing, and paying them a wage for it, saying thank you for them and their contribution, and then trying through that platform to spread it out to the world. And the way we're going to do that is by having the platform make sure that all resources for playing their music will be free for registered users of that platform. And what I mean by that is we're getting into licensing territory where it can't be the typical licensing. It has to be a Creative Commons with rules and regulations for how people can interact with that music so that they don't discredit or ruin the artist's livelihood. And so there's a lot of details around the licensing. It's ridiculously hard to give something away for free these days. But I think it's paramount that the music being received by the church is something that, and I'll put it this way, if I'm to preach the gospel from the pulpit, no, somebody asked me this question. I think it was Chris. He phrased it this way. I'm going to phrase it and test it out on you guys. Let's see how you react to this. If you could have, and I'm going to butcher it, Chris is going to get so mad at me. You could have the gospel preached for free or amazing songs in your church. Which would you choose?
Amazing song. I'm a musician, so I'm going for Are the amazing songs about the gospel?
I'm not going to answer that.
And so with the amazing songs, then we have to pay for the gospel.
You can only have one or the other right now, right?
Hmm.
So you can
I
only have the gospel preached from free, or you can have awesome songs. And what I mean by that is you can sing hymns that people don't really consider awesome songs musically these days. They're good songs, but people don't typically think of them in that pile of awesome songs. They think of the Brandon Lake stuff, or Bethel or whatever. And so you can have one or the other right now, but you can't have both. And
I
that, I don't think licensing is the issue here necessarily, right? Like hymns were licensed and people purchased the hymns and then they owned it. So money's not a problem here. But is there a dollar hindering a missionary from sharing the gospel with somebody else because it's a music form instead of through the Bible being preached? Like that's fundamentally biblically, I'm wondering, why are we putting a restraint in front of the gospel being shared in one way when we're not in another? And
mm,
I just think it's the model. I don't think it's a problem that money's being paid. It's just the model, because
mm,
people give to that. They shouldn't be required, or I'm going to get sued. There's a
mm,
there, and that's a problem that wasn't even intended to happen. It's when hymns stopped being popular and projectors took over the church. Because how are people going to see the lyrics? Well, we have to project it. Okay, if we're projecting it, how are we sharing the license on crediting and who did what? And so they came up with CCLI. And CCLI was doing this to solve a good problem, or to solve a problem in a good way. And again, like, no knocks on any of these companies that created solutions.
mm,
Over time, it's just kind of led into this dark place as a collective. And I think everything drifts. And so over time, everything, including this local worship project, will drift over time if it's successful. And so reforming something isn't always, again, tearing it all down. It's just trying to get back to what the intentions were. But yeah, I mean, does that make sense? So like, it's not about the money, but about the way that we're forcing the money to interact with the people in the church.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. Interesting. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So Jana, let me give you this, because you brought up how to use your offerings. Would you rather have your church use $500 to help fundraise this missionary artist who's writing music for the church? Or would you spend $500 for them to license music?
An
If you
artist or to license music, like to use.
let's say that you're splitting up that $500 to directly go to those artists to thank them for what they're doing, all the ones you would pay the licensing fees for. Or would you rather license it in a blanket license of songs that you're never going to sing in the future, and pay people who are not the artists primarily, and give those little pieces to the artists down the line? That's the problem that we're dealing with in that pyramid scheme.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where's my money going? And you can look at this in the concerts as well, right? So like the concert space, that's pretty much how musicians make money these days. In the concerts, you think of the things that they're celebrating. So I think of, let's adopt a kid from another country. Well, we know, if you've been in that world, when it comes to concerts and where that money goes, we know that only 5% of that goes to the kid. If you're spending $100 a month on that kid, and we know the other 95% is going towards the caravan that artist is going through, and paying the other people who are in charge of all of that label work. We know only $5 is going to that kid out of our 100 that's being dragged out of our hearts. And even less in a lot of these cases. And it's not promoted that way. And that's our Christian tours that are going on of adopting kids. And it has to be that way. There's no other way to do it with the machine the way that it's running. The machine's huge. There's just no other way to do it.
Yeah.
And so, again, I don't think it's necessarily a heart behind the people or their intentions. I think it's just the machine is out of control.
Mm. Yeah.
But I'm getting off topic. Rory, did you have something? I think I cut you off.
Oh, you're fine. Yeah, I have a few questions for rapid fire. So, in one or two sentences, how would you distinguish the local worship project from, the status quo, like what's going on right now? Like, how is it different?
How would it be different?
Or what's new about it?
It's not motivated by profit, and there's a lot I want to say. Thank you for the 2-sentence guideline here. It's not motivated by profit, and it builds community with the artist and the church. It focuses on community between the artist and the church.
Nice. So then, for how you want to, set it up and have it run, what's maybe one big pitfall that you have thought about? And if you're to try this out and it doesn't fully become what you envision it now, how would you iterate on that?
Yeah. That's a good question. I don't know fully yet because we're not there. I think we've got a really good model for how we've been pursuing it. And we have to test it. And I think I need to say what the model is. Otherwise, it won't really serve to know what I'm talking about. The model is that for these pilots that we're going to test, is that we're going to do a 3-day experience worship through testimony, prayer, and praise with those 5 worship leader songwriters. They're going to come to the location for the first 2 days with their song that they're contributing, and they're just going to play those songs together in a environment where they're producing it and finessing those songs. The idea is day 1, day 2, they're playing each other's songs, they're practicing, they're making sure they're finalizing, this is where we want to go at the bridge, and how about the chorus for your song? And they're just bantering with each other and praying through that. At each of those nights, we're going to do just live recordings of what's going on. We're going to capture the entire experience on camera, by the way, the behind the scenes and all that. We're going to ask testimonies and what inspired you to write this song, tell us the story, capturing all of that behind the scenes, kind of like you see those Beatles documentaries coming out, stuff. So very, very reminiscent to that, just super gritty behind the scenes stuff. And at each of those first two nights, they're just going to track the songs that they've been working on. So the first couple songs, first night, the next songs, the next night. And then the third day, we're going to invite the entire church community into that space to do a night of worship with that prayer, testimony, and praise. And so they're going to come. We're going to just sing whatever. We'll have licensing going for that night to be able to stream or share on a screen any worship music. But it's very much less about let's do a worship night with music, and very more about let's share these 5 songs from local artists that they just want to release for you guys to start singing. Let's add whatever the Holy Spirit lifts up during this time of praise and testimony and prayer. And kind of I don't know if you guys ever been to a sing-spiration. There's different things that they're called, but basically you let people just kind of pick songs throughout the night that they're going to sing and share testimony. And that's about it. It's just this night of crazy, let's engage with each other and see where this thing goes. And that's what this night would really be like when they unveil those 5 songs and release them. And we would record all of that. After the night is over and the 3-day experience is done, then the songs are going to go, all the recordings we took are going to go to our mixer and master. And what they're going to do is just put together a really good demo of that stuff. And then what they're going to do is upload the different files of the different instruments so that people in their churches can have sheet music, can have tracks, and can have a full recording in a very high quality demo and a video that they can watch on that with testimony for that song itself, with the artist saying this is the story behind it, and everything on the platform page. And so these artists would start building up their song library for them. And then we would allow people to use and start piloting, testing those in their churches with all the resources we made for free for them to use in the right guidelines with the Creative Commons. So that's how we would collect the music, is through those live experiences with high quality demos that we facilitate and track and all that. We would put them all on our platform, and then we would give the songwriter their entire song back, 100% theirs, even though they kind of collabed on the production. They're all going to have to give each other their song back, essentially 100% license wise. And that way everybody walks away with a full song that is 100% their own. And then they can do whatever they want with it. It's on our platform, but they can still, sell it wherever and self-promote it and all that. It's 100% theirs. And we'll just sign a contract of a year to 3 year licensing agreement. And we have whole things about how we can go through negotiation if they get signed by a label and need to go through that. But that's kind of the model. So it's those weekends or those 3-day worship nights, and then uploading that stuff onto the platform and distributing out from there.
Nice. Yeah, so I'd see some of maybe the hardest parts is funding it from the start, and then marketing. Once you have you have the songs, you have all the materials, everything, and then it's like, okay, how do we get it out to as many people, many churches as we can?
Yeah. So funding it would be fun. But yes, if that didn't happen, then really you just need to find the right people to bulldoze that. It's kind of like piloting anything. You just need to have the right people saying, no, this is worth it. I'm going to give up my time for it. If it means that it's a different site because travel's too hard, and maybe we find 5 local artists in a single city, and we just bring it to them and they have a local church host it, and we don't have the best camera gear and all that. Maybe a church uses their own their own camera gear and video control and all that stuff to track it and lay it down for free. There's ways to do it. And so it's just really bulldozing that and seeing how we can creatively work around those things. So.
Very nice. Yeah, and I would recommend reaching out to Andrew. He's definitely a needle in a haystack because he's excellent at songwriting and producing and doing everything from start to finish. He's not like a mastering engineer because I think he can do it. But anyway, yeah, I just want to plug him because I love him and he's such a great, worship leader and songwriter, and he's my best friend. So.
Oh, there we go.
Rory, what's Andrew's last name?
Aguilar.
Okay, Aguilar. Okay. Just
You
curious.
He's in South Carolina?
Yeah. Yeah, he's been moving around. He was in Albuquerque. He was in Arizona. But yeah, now they've settled in South Carolina, and yeah, cutest little kids. Oh my gosh. And Ellie.
Love that.
Cool.
Casey, I think I might have kind of like a maybe wrap up follow-up question, but
yeah,
for anyone who's going to watch this in the future, what is it that you need? Like, how can we support? From this conversation, what do you want us to walk away with? What do you want us to share with others? How can we support? Kind of just give us a picture of that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thanks for asking that. I have a ridiculously hard time trying to self-promote, which is why even when I'm talking about this, I asked other people to come in and pepper me with questions. So thank you for doing that. But yeah, I mean, the idea would be we need to fundraise. So we need to get at least 15,000 in to do this right for one of the 2 pilots. If we could get 30, that would be amazing. But I think the bigger thing would be helping us find the artists to make this happen. The worship pastor, songwriter, producer, who plays instruments, and is able to just jam out with people to make a live event like that happen and possible. And has that heart posture of saying, yeah, this will be fun. Like I'd love to do something like that. That's the part that I don't have enough contacts to really get the 10 people that I want to find. I've got about half of that in my brain, and I haven't reached all of them yet, working on it. But I think those needles in the haystack, they'll be the ones who will pivot if the funding doesn't come in. And so I think that's the most important thing to support, other than prayer, because I will just say that as we've gone down this path, there have been many blocks that have happened that are, I believe, supernaturally happening. And so just prayer for a girding up and a moving through the blockages that the enemy tries to put in the way of something I believe that he's got a strong foothold in and doesn't want to give up, because he has his talons in the church in one way or another. Not necessarily all the people, but by proxy, he's in there. And so whenever we're trying to get something back to just Bible and just the Christians helping the Christians and supporting and showing how the kingdom is here on earth, I think we're going to face a lot of anti movement, and that's what we've been experiencing, me and my family, and I'm sure that the others who are going to jump in on this are going to experience a bit of the same. And so, yeah, prayer, finding those artists, and then of course the monetary stuff. All of that money is going to the pilot. We're not keeping any of that as a family, and so just know that every single dollar is going to location, to the stuff that we need to actually record and pull this off, and building the platform, and then to the artists themselves. So thank you.
Yeah, gotcha. Thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
for sharing your heart in this vision. It's exciting and it sounds beautiful. And, I know regardless, I will also, all those things that you just asked, I will be doing my part. I'll be praying. And I can share with you some connections that I think might be helpful.
That'd be great.
So, yeah, this sounds wonderful. Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah, thanks for being involved, both of you. Like calling you up last minute and just hanging out and talking. Let's go ahead and wrap this up then. So, what I'd like to do real quick is just let you guys just share where people can support you as well, and then we'll just pray together and close it out. Sound good?
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. Where can people support you or find you?
Let's see. Gosh, I'm not too much on social media. You could find me on Facebook, LinkedIn, or whatever. Yeah, I don't know.
Great. How about you,
Um,
Jana?
Yeah.
Find me on practicingmusician.com and our
Oh,
team
there you
section.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
But
Yeah.
yeah. What was the other part, I guess?
Oh, that was it. Just where can they
Oh,
support
okay.
you? Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
For me, again, I think my husband is more heavily on social media than I am juggling all my babies. But we do have an like a joint Instagram page where you can follow us and hear our music and see what's happening. And our Instagram tag is Otto Jana Gross. So that's OTTO, my husband, and then Jana, Jayna, and then our last name Gross, Gross, all one word. Otto Jana Gross. I want to say is our handle.
Nice. That kind of flows off the tongue too.
Yay! I love that.
All right. Well, let me just pray for us, and then we'll get on out of here. All right.
Yes.
Heavenly Father, thank you so much for today. I want to thank you for once again just being able to hang out with some brothers and sisters in Christ. Thank you for the thread that just unites us all from wherever we're at in the world and whatever our backgrounds are and whatever we're doing day to day. We get to just start the week off just hanging out, just talking about you, talking about your word, and sharing stories of how we are following you. And so I want to thank you so much for Rory. I want to thank you for Jaina and her husband Otto and her kids. And I want to thank you so much for what they're doing in your name to contribute to their communities and contribute to this world. But I just pray protection over them tonight, that you would just guard them and keep them and bless them in every way that they need right now. And I pray that you would just go before us and go before this stream and help other people feel encouraged as well if they watch this, and for them to find their way to following whatever you have called them to do. And hopefully they get encouraged by hearing other people talk about navigating those things as well. And so pray that people would step into it, that every day they would see their life as submitted to you, and that you would be glorified through all of that. We love you. We just pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.